What does consent mean to you?
I think I guess it means providing permission to do anything, I guess.
Consent means verbal and enthusiastic and informed. Yes.
Consent means that you give a full and enthusiastic yes without any influence of drugs or alcohol.
Means two people agreeing on something.
Consent is an enthusiastic yes, and like very clearly saying yes to something and being willing to participate.
Consent is 100% and it's something that is continuous.
It's like you say yes, sexual intercourse, I guess. It has to be on both sides, like both parties.
Consent means to me that someone gives you permission verbally.
Consent means to me a mutual agreement that is decided upon prior to.
Basically, getting somebody's permission.
In the context of what you're saying, consent means that you are agreeing to have sexual intercourse with somebody, as opposed to them persuading you, forcing you.
Imagine that in the backyard of your home, you have a tree. But it's not a nice tree. Actually, it's very ugly, gets in your way, and the neighbors are constantly whispering about this massive misshapen tree that you have in your yard. After a while, you decide you've had enough of the neighbors whispering about this tree, so you say, hey, I'm going to get rid of this tree. But it's a pretty sturdy tree. You try to chop it down with an axe, and that doesn't work. You try to saw through the trunk, but that doesn't work either. Eventually you think, maybe if I just get rid of the branches, it won't look so ugly. So you shear off the branches, but they grow back quickly. And the tree? It's still looking pretty ugly. You desperately want to get rid of this tree, but it persists. What does this tree even have to do with sexual assault? Well, that tree is sexual assault. Think about it. Sexual assault, an old yet unpleasant reality that must be addressed. Now, with allegations of assault appearing in mainstream media, we say, it's time for sexual assault to stop being a problem. We focus on how to punish perpetrators more effectively. We teach individuals to be cautious wherever they go, and when that doesn't drastically reduce sexual violence, we turn to the effects. We treat the physical and emotional effects, and although our efforts are valuable in supporting victims, it doesn't do much to minimize how much violence occurs on a daily basis. But what if you got to the roots of the tree, to the roots of sexual assault? In elementary school, you probably learned that the only way to get rid of a plant is to the roots. If you chop off the top of a tree, it might be gone for a little while, but it'll grow back, and that's counterproductive. But if you pull the tree up by the roots, then the tree won't grow in your yard anymore. If we want to minimize sexual violence, we must start with the roots, the causes. A primary cause? Lack of education on consent. So what is it? In regards to sexual actions, consent is defined as freely made agreement between individuals to engage in sexual activity. Let's break it down. A freely made agreement. Individuals participating in the agreement must be acting of their own free will, consciously aware of the situation, and free of any threat or fear from other parties. People who are under the influence of drugs saying yes. People who are under the influence of alcohol saying yes. People who don't understand that you're trying to seduce them. Nope, none of these are consent. Between individuals, meaning it must be two-sided or however many individuals are participating. If one person says yes to engaging in sexual activity, the other person is kind of like, meh, that's not consent. If one person says yes and the other person is reluctant, that's not consent. If one person says yes and the other is silent, that's still not consent. But if one person says yes and the other person says yes, then you have consent. To engage in sexual activity. Your mind probably went near the whole birds and bees concept, right? Consent applies to that too, but it also applies to the simpler things like hand-holding, hugging, and kissing. Now that might seem kind of silly, but think about it this way. Let's say that someone you know doesn't like when people touch their phone. What's the sensible thing to do? Not touch their phone without asking. That principle applies to people's bodies. If they don't want you holding their hand, then don't hold their hand. If they don't want to start sexy times with you, don't force them. Just be chill. See? Not so bad, right? When it comes down to it, consent is two things: communication and respect. Consent is communicating what you are or are not comfortable. Consent is about asking your partner what their boundaries are. Consent is about both parties being aware of the other's boundaries and mutually agreeing to respect those boundaries. So what can you do to utilize consent? Practice this in your daily life. Respect others' boundaries in everything. Start communicating with your peers. You can nail both in school, at work, or at home. You can nail it when it comes to sexual activity.
We've heard a lot about sexual harassment in the media and on the news. these days. So what do you think can be done in the near future to minimize sexual violence in communities?
Well, honestly, more punishment.
Stronger repercussions for people who've been accused of sexual abuse and harassment. I think that we should create a safe, open discussion about sexual consent, as well as be able to integrate it into our curriculum in sex education.
I think what's happening now is making people aware of it.
I think in order to prevent sexual violence, we should teach kids from a young age what consent means.
I think making sure that people who like have committed sexual violence and domestic violence that were like they're cut off from being celebrated.
Maybe like more information being out there to the public, people being more informed on the topic.
We're in a society where people don't understand communication. So, first thing is teaching people how to properly communicate, where someone can't assume anything.
I think it's just awareness, and I think it's changing the way that people think or speak about things.
One thing, teach guys better.
I mean, I think things like you guys are doing, we just need to get the idea out.